We are starting a new series. It's called The Being Challenge. It's together with the Red Letter Challenge that we did last year. Very similar books, the same author. This is what the book looks like over here. There is 40 days of reading in here. You have an intro that takes you to about page 32, and then after that, you get to day one. Look, day one, there it is. Day one, you start day one on Tuesday. So you start reading that, and you just read a day, and we kind of go through it with the sermon series, and you do it for 40 days there, and it's fun. Now, you got to understand something about this book, though. It's written by this guy named Zach Zehnder, all right? Zach Zehnder. I went to seminary with this guy. One of my most special memories is actually with this guy, with Zach Zehnder. It was all going to a movie. I'm not going to tell you which movie it was because all of you will judge me. I don't need that level of judgment in my life, right? Like that's over there. But I'm not the only one that has a connection to Zach Zehnder. Our own Megan Lynch over here, who is Cindy's daughter, and she's the mother of Kyler, is working in the back over there, trying to make me look better than I actually am. She went to school with Zach, right? So between the two of us, we know where the bodies are buried with this guy, and so she went to school with Zach. So he's like, this guy's real. This guy's real, and he provides these books. He made the Red Letter Challenge. Now, can you remember there were 5 things in the Red Letter Challenge that he wants to go through? Can you remember what they were? Can you guess the first one? There you go. Well, you're the only one. Like that. It's a being, right? You got being, forgiving, giving, and going, right? Being, forgiving, serving, giving, and going. There it goes. There's the 5. So he has these things. For the next 5 years, we're going to go through. 5 years. There's going to be 5 of these for each one of those: being, forgiving, serving, giving, and going, right? So we're doing the first one here, and every fall we're going to go through here. So we're gonna do that as we go through this. So I invite you to get one of these books here. And I was talking to Phil Fredrich. He's already read to day 7. I was like, listen, Phil, you don't have to get ahead of us like that, right? And he's like, I like it because he goes, there's like little challenging bits, and he kind of enlightens you on some scriptures as you kind of go through. So I encourage you to pick up the book there. But to kind of tease the book, the whole idea behind the Being Challenge is that we're creating these Keystone habits. And I thought in his intro, he had a story in it that I would do over here to kind of wet your whistle for the book, all right? And it's about Michael Phelps. You guys remember Michael Phelps? You know, he had like 23 gold medals. Look at him over there. That's what I look like without a shirt on. And that's complete with the gold medals and everything, right? You can buy those. And they, but it's that's, you know, he's over these, and he did swimming, and he was an amazing swimmer. He's got, you know, one of the reasons why he has all those gold medals in swimming is he's a freak of nature, all right? And he is. Like, he's got a weirdly long torso, very long arms, huge hands proportionally to his body, like he's able to cup the water like nothing else. His foot will bend farther than most of humanity's will, right? The guy's just set up to act like a dolphin in the water, right? Like that's just how he is. But when he was coming up and was, you know, going to all these tournaments, he was good. He had a lot of natural ability, but his coach noticed that there was an issue, that he would start kind of wigging out and getting nervous at the beginning of each race. He would get this, and it would affect his performance while he was in the lanes. So his coach set him on a strict routine to give him some new habits so that he would just click into the race and not be so nervous. Some of those habits were he ate the same thing every day, pretty much. Ooh, it's the life, right? That's how you get 23 gold medals. But he would eat a breakfast of eggs, oatmeal, and 4 high-calorie protein shakes. Now, some of you know these little factoids about Michael Phelps, but he was known that while he was training for the Olympics, he would eat 12 5,000 calories a day. That's a lot of Domino's pizza. Right? Like that's a lot of pizza, right? And so he would do the same warm-up and stretches every week. He would put on his racing suit the same way every week. Now, you've seen those racing suits, they're like the little pants that he puts on. Those are so tight that it would take him 20 minutes to put those on every day. Like that, I'm just, as I read this, it's like, these are not habits I need to form. Like loose fit Levi's. Here we come, right? Like, so that's over there. But he'd take 20 minutes and put on his racing suit the same way. He would put on the same headphones, listen to the same music, and he would play. Like he'd go through, like you could see him. There's like, this is kind of known that he had this like death stare at the pool before he would swim at it. And when he was doing that, he was visualizing what the race would look like. What each stroke, how many strokes that he would need to take to get through there. And then he would get up on the starting block, and this is kind of what he was known for. He would do the thing where he'd like slap his back. You guys remember that? I can barely touch my shoulders, right? Like that's, he's like slapping his back, which is, it's this whole thing. And then he would dive in. And in Beijing in 2008, he was working on his 10th gold medal, right? And it was the 200-meter butterfly swim. And this is where all those habits paid off big time, because the gun went off and they all dove in the water for this 200-meter butterfly race. And as he dove in, he realized that there was a problem. That his goggles, either they were messed up or they were on crooked or something like that, began to leak water into them. Uh-oh, right? He began to leak water into them, and he's continuing the race and all that, because you can't go, time out, I need to fix my goggles. You can't do that, right? Like it's you're in the Olympics, you just gotta persevere. And it got to the point where by the time he made the last turn, his goggles were both completely filled with water, and basically he was blind. He could not see the bottom line of his lane. He couldn't see that black cross at the end of each lane over there. And he just needed to have all those habits, all of his training, to just know what to do. His coach even had him train often at night in the pool with the lights off, so that he could remember exactly how to swim without any of the markings. And he knew that it was 21 breaststrokes to get across the pool. Imagine that, 21 of those. I don't think I'd be a quarter into the way. It's over there, and I'm like breathing heavy, and like that's 20. But he knew 21 to get across there. He couldn't see a thing, and as he's going across, counting all of his strokes, he can hear the crowd just going crazy all around him. He's like, "Is it close? Did they just pass me? Like, what is going on?" And he counts it down. He's like 19, 20, and he's like, "I'm going to make a really big one on the 21st one," and he does just a huge one. He puts his arm out after the 21st, touches the side. And he gets up out of the water, rips his goggles on over and looks up at the screen, and he sees his name with a WR next to it, which meant world record. Right? Not only did he win the gold for that race, but he won the world record in that, swimming basically blind, right? Like our habits can really help us in times of difficulty, in times of unsureness, in times of when we don't know quite what's going on. Our habits that we have worked on can help us go forward here, right? That they can help us in and that's what we're talking about in the Being Challenge, that we're working on creating these 5 keystone habits for our everyday life. These habits help us aim towards Jesus. And if you remember from the Red Letter Challenge, we talked in the Being one, we talked a lot about aiming at Jesus. If you look at the front of the book, it's got all these arrows in it, because these 5 habits are there to help us aim, right? Because when we aim at Jesus, when we aim to be with Jesus, when that is our aim and goal, what does Jesus say inside the gospel lesson today? My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Oftentimes we may have the greatest intentions in the world, but we end up communicating or living in a reality ourselves that puts a heavy yoke and a heavy burden on us, right? And we can have the best intentions. We want to live a good, righteous life, a good life, but we can make that burden so heavy on us and the friends around us. And that's kind of become Christians' reputation in the world, has it not? That we are the people that love to put a heavy burden on other people, right? And I think that comes from us, from the good side of us. We want righteousness to flourish in the world. But Jesus says, when you're with me, when you're being with me, the yoke is easy and the burden is light. So our aim is incredibly important, right? Our aim and our habits will help our aim. And to show you how incredibly important our aim is, I wanted us to go all the way back in the Wayback Machine, back to the dark years of March 2020. You remember that? Remember March 14th, 2020? A day that will live in infamy, right? When the world basically shut down. Like we're all living in our house, right? I was trying to figure out how to do church anew, right? And look at how everything has changed now. I now say hi to a camera every week and all those things, right? Like that's, like all this stuff happened and it changed. And you remember what happened during all this? Like the stock market crashed and there's all this fear around all that stuff. But something a bunch of people realized all of a sudden, like, oh man, this telework thing, this working from home thing, this video conferencing thing, this is going to be huge. This is the future, which is true. Like we as a church here immediately grabbed a subscription for Zoom, right? And we did, think about all the things that I branded as Zoom. We had Zoom to Scripture was our Bible study. We had Zoom to Coffee where we'd get together on Zoom to kind of replicate the coffee hour in the back there. We did that for like a year, right? All these Zoom things. And people were like, oh, I should buy some Zoom stock, right? And that's what they should do. Does anyone remember what happened though? People searched Zoom for the ticker Zoom and they searched ZOOM. The problem is the ticker ZOOM, Zoom, wasn't Zoom like we know it. It was Zoom Technologies, which was a penny stock, right? Totally different company. The company that you wanted to buy was ZM as the NASDAQ ticker, right? And this is a CNBC article from March 26, 2020. Like this has happened right away. Like the SEC pauses Zoom Technologies trading because people think it's Zoom video. And the people's intentions and their intuition was right. They're like, man, this teleconferencing, this video conferencing is going to be the future. I need to invest in it. But their aim was off, right? They didn't hit the right thing. And it caused a lot of people to lose a lot of money, right? Because of it. So yeah, those are real things. Our aim is important, and having habits helps us do that. And so the whole point of this sermon series is to form habits, to form good habits. And a habit is just a regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. I have a bunch of bad habits in my life. One that is very hard to give up. But there's tons of good ones that you can do, There's good ones that we strive to do. There's those habits that we strive to do that our hygienist encourages us to do every time we visit there, right? When she asks us the question, are you flossing? Like that. And then you say, yes, you're the last one to floss that, right? Like that's, and all of that stuff, like there's all these habits. These habits of doing these things, and we know that we should do them. But what Timothy says, and this is what Cheryl read earlier, and it's kind of what I talked about in the confession a little bit. He says, rather train yourself for godliness. For while the body training is of some value, godliness is of a value in every way. So he's talking about like training ourselves kind of in this spiritual sense work on these habits to bring us closer to him. So what are these habits we're talking about, that we're going to talk about? So there were 5 things in the Red Letter Challenge, and lo and behold, there's 5 things here too. And what Zach has done, he's kind of looked around, and it's like, what was it like to be around Jesus' life, and what was it to be in his teachings? What is it like to be in Jesus? And here's some spiritual habits that we're going to talk about here, these keystone habits. The one is committing to community. We're going to talk about that next week. The next one is studying Scripture. Another one's prioritizing prayer, seeking solitude, and choosing church. It's the being challenge here, the being part of the Red Letter Challenge was so important. I had a friend. I only had one. He's gone now. I have a friend who's a pastor in Lake Worth Beach. His name's Jake Rhodeson. If you're ever down on that, go visit his church down there. He's LCMS, and he when he did the Red Letter Challenge with his congregation, he really resonated with the being. Because he was like, the being is the start of it all. Like the being, he goes, that's what kind of resonated with him so much personally, because we are with Jesus. And how you go into being a forgiving person is you first have to be able to be with Jesus, right? How you're going to become a serving person, you first have to be with Jesus. You got to be at the foot of the cross. You have to be sent by the resurrection. You know, if you want to be a giving, generous person, you be with Jesus and be sent up from there. To go out into the world, you first have to be with Jesus. So this being, as we look over the next 5 years of doing Red Letter Challenge stuff, is like we're creating these habits that will send us out into these other areas of our lives, that we can see what's going on. But old habits are hard to break, right? They're hard to break. And you may be looking at one of those, you're like, ooh, seeking solitude. I don't know if I like that one very much. Like over there, that's your extroverts in the room. That's me. Because all my demons show up like when I'm in the shower. You know? Not for what you're laughing at. Easy there. Good grief. But that's when I'm quiet, right? That's when I don't have a YouTube video burning or something like that, you know? That's when I'm quiet, and all the nasty things that anyone's ever said to me, that's when they come up to the front, right? Solitude can be scary. It can be scary. But some of you are introverted. You're like, yes. Oh, you just get me away from all these people. And that's where committing to a community is important, right? To do things together. That's kind of what we're talking about here. That's why we have the together groups. And we'll show it to you here at the end of the service, but at 11 o'clock, it's 11:03 right now. At 11 o'clock, our Together Group curriculum hit our website, right? So you can just go to the website, look at it. We'll show it to you in a little bit, but there's a video that you can watch. There's a little curriculum with questions that you can go to, and that's the beginning of this choosing a community and studying the Scriptures and doing all these things. You can do it just with your family at home. Grab some other friends, though, and do it with them. Commit to a day. If you want to do it with me, like Monday at 7 o'clock at my house, we'll do that. If you guys get too rowdy for my house, we'll do it here. All right? But Monday, we're going to start at 7. You can get there a little early. Or you can do Thursday at 11 here at church. And you can join on Zoom on that one. See the Zoom connection there? But get together and do these things together. I think you'll find it fun and enjoyable as we go through all these things, and as we create new habits and do these new things in our life. Remember that even if you find some things difficult, that there's no temptation, there's no struggle that God can't lead you through, and you can create these habits to change, that they could change and help your aim as you go forward. And I want to end on the Apostle Paul when he talks about Romans chapter 8. And he says, and if the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, He who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies because of his Spirit who lives in you. The whole last month we went through that Missio Day, and that's centered around Jesus appearing with the disciples in that locked room when they were scared after Jesus had died. And Jesus, the risen Jesus, appears in the room, and he goes, "Peace be with you." And he breathes on them. I hear this, "Peace be with you," and you could almost feel Jesus breathing them through these words of Paul in Romans. That as we go out into here, as we create new habits, as we look at our own salvation, how Jesus has saved us, understand that he who raised Jesus from the dead, that same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, still works in us. And remember, that's the same word for spirit, is the same word for breath. It's the same word for wind, right? And that with every breath we take, we can inhale that Spirit of God that raised Jesus from the dead. With every wind that rustles the leaves on the trees, we can feel the Spirit of God moving through our hair and our being as it moves us through here. So as we look at being with Jesus and creating new habits, understand that God is always with us, guiding us and leading us on and helping us form these habits to improve our aim, that we may go out into the world talking about how the burden is light and it's full of grace and truth. And I think that's good news, and it's exciting. And we'll end right there. Let's say a prayer. Jesus, we thank you that you love us and that you're with us. Lord, we thank you that your Spirit is with us. Lord, give us a comfort in that. And Lord, let us see how your burden is easy and light on us. And Lord, let us communicate that with everyone around us. So thank you so much, Jesus, for saving us. Amen. Excellent. So